Well, I have to say something about Stan Lee. I do. Even though he wasn't involved in music, you know, entertainment, you know, is just really it's important. Art is important, but I have to just put it on the table, which is I recognize as much as I want to encourage people to recognize art versus just entertainment. Entertainment is very important and enriches. Stan Lee, the co-creator of Marvel Comics, who just died at 95, what he did through his comic regime has had a huge impact on the world, and me as well. You know that my primary obsession is music and records. When I was a kid, like most kids, and back in the 60s, comic books were fascinating, and because we were poor, we couldn't, even though they were cheap, affording a comic book was a big deal. You know what I'm saying? I think it was like 9 or 10 cents for a comic book when I was a little, that I can first remember. What I remember was discovering the difference between, the difference of quality. I'm trying to get my computer to stop humming so loud. And it's just humming louder. Okay. So when I discovered the difference between Batman and the Fantastic Four, DC versus Marvel, that was it. Marvel Comics was so much more interesting, higher quality artwork. Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, I remember their names like rock stars. Their artwork is so iconic. Just judging by, Facebook for many of us really is the water cooler in the general room, or it's the public bulletin board, or it's the place, the gathering point where people meet and talk. And I beg to differ that it's not a virtual reality just because we're talking online to a screen. That's us. That's you on the other side. So this is real as far as I'm concerned. And the outpouring of absolute love, devotion, and grief at the passing of Stan Lee yesterday was notable. I always note, and I, again, like to share these things. I figured it out even before I was a teenager that music and art were probably the most important things to people. The thing that really makes life make sense, even more than religion and politics. Music and art, number one. And Stan Lee's passing, even at 95. At 95, it's like you've lived a good life, and people are still in shock, you know what I'm saying? We wanted him to live forever. It causes me to reflect on a lot of things, Death and just growing old is just something we have to deal with, and a lot of times I'll think to myself, man, it's like I don't want to think about my brothers and sisters passing, and yet at the same time I'll think, well, if I go first, you think about how that'll affect others, and then I'll think, well, if I go first, then I don't have to suffer through the grief of losing them. It's a tough one. So what it causes me to think on a daily basis is to remember this is the most important moment. Regardless of what I'm doing or not doing, this is it. So cherish it. This is life. Whether I'm accomplishing anything, whether I'm at a place I really want to be or not, this is it. This moment, this is life. The next moment is not guaranteed. We live as though it is, and I think we have to, but it's grounding for me to realize that it's not guaranteed. So just enjoy life. Right quick, some records that are sitting out, because you like that. Soft Machine number 4. Got quite a bit of discussion going on Facebook about this. This was the last album that Robert Wyatt played drums on. There he is. Soft Machine was never the same, and Robert Wyatt's drumming, even though he was basically pushed out of the band, a band that he kind of started. They went on to do things, but this was the last one where they're really moving into the jazz. They're moving into jazz, completely away from rock. No vocals at all on this. But again, Robert's drumming is brilliant, and it defines this music. Nobody else played drums like Robert Wyatt. After he became paralyzed, no one took up the mantle. Chris Cutler has a similar style, but he doesn't play like Robert Wyatt. Played this, Clot 2. People like to be fooled. When this first came out, people swore it was the Beatles, but even back then, I knew it wasn't the Beatles. It was really obvious they're doing Beatles moves, but this isn't the Beatles. All you got to do is really listen. But you know, the world is big and wide, and we all don't perceive things nearly the same way. So a lot of people really thought it was the Beatles, or just really liked the idea that maybe it's the Beatles. This is a great album. My favorite track on this is Little Neutrino, Not Calling Occupants. That's the one everyone always talks about. And it's a good track. It's the one that the Carpenters covered, of all people. But Little Neutrino is a mystical piece of music. Last piece on here, it's amazing. That's why I like this. House of Love, A Spy in the House of Love. I'll still say this, you know, it's just my opinion, but one of the greatest bands from England that people just still, I think it's because Guy Chadwick isn't pretty, and because he was a bit of a nutter, because he knew how good he was and said so, and people don't like that. House of Love, I just played this record all the way through twice, once yesterday and then the day before, all the way through, because every damn song, every song on here is just so beautifully crafted. I love the House of Love. I love the House of Love. I love that music. Kazumi Watanabe from Japan, guitar player. I actually never really liked his style. I have these because of the people that play with him, Ryuichi Sakamoto and Akiko Yano. That's why I have this. So I keep putting together a new page for new merchandise. I might get it done today, I might not. I need money, but it's not my focus. I'm just trying to enjoy life. Maybe you haven't noticed, but there's a lot of new records out that I'd love to tell you about, but I don't have them because I can't buy them. The new Dead Can Dance, I'd love to tell you about that. The new Opeth Live. There's several others. You know, I'd love to have them, but I don't have it. I don't have a budget for music. Not complaining, just telling you. You know what I'm saying? This is how I live. Just trying to make it. Excuse me. So I'll sign off by just, again, encouraging others like I encourage myself to remain humble and know what's important, which is the fact that we're breathing and we're still here, and to continue to fight against the mounting madness in this world. How materialism has just made people absolutely mad and crazy. We need love. We need love. We need to love ourselves unconditionally and pass that on to the next person. We can do this, people.